So I've been thinking a lot recently about why writing is the only art where it's kind of frowned upon to be spending money on yourself. So people who are interested in filmmaking, they will finance their own movies. If you're a musician, you'll pay for studio time, you'll maybe pay to go on a tour. There just seems to be like a natural acceptance of certain creatives spending money. But when it comes to writing, it's almost like if you're writing books, you have to wait to be chosen in a sense because you're waiting for an agent to validate you. And an agent is just one person with taste, with a particular taste. And you're like sending out, begging for some attention from these agents. And obviously, self publishing is becoming more popular, but it's still not widely seen as being like the normal route. And because obviously self published books don't tend to end up in bookstores as well, it's kind of like we still have this idea of like the cultural gatekeepers, the publishers, and the agents that say, like, yes, this book is good enough for someone to read. I don't know if it's to do with like the time it takes in order to read a book, which is a bit different from watching a movie or like listening to music, seeing a band. But there is just something about it that, I've been thinking is very frustrating, this, sense of waiting around to be chosen. You're not waiting around, but like there's like this big divide between, doing all this work in private, and then it's like suddenly if you had an agent that would validate you. Whereas, I feel like other artists can build momentum on their own. Like, if you're a musician, you can be like booking yourself gigs, you can be like touring, and like, yes, you could reach another level, but you can see like these incremental steps, and people can come see you at any point. But with writing, like it's also private until it's public, until you're validated, until an agent says yes, like you're good enough. At that point, then you can go tell everybody, oh, I've got an agent, I've got a publisher, my book is coming out. I don't know if that's like this romanticism around writing and this like sense of it being like this solo project. So it's like, if you're investing in yourself, then that kind of takes away that aspect of like the soul artist struggling. Like I don't know if it's because writing is supposed to be like such a solitary thing, and it is a solitary thing, but it's quite frustrating that there's not really incremental achievements. There's more like you're nobody, you're you're nothing, no one's going to read your stuff, and then on the other side, bam, like you've got an agent, you've got a publisher, and then suddenly people read your things. And I just feel, it's kind of a frustrating place to be when you kind of feel, and a lot of people do this, if they've been writing for a long time, they've been writing lots of different books, you're going to feel like you've developed the skills and that you've put together something worthy. And then you're in this position where like you need to be the best thing an agent has read before they take you on, and the problem I think with writing just now is like there is such a low barrier to entry. Like the volume of writers is getting higher, so the volume of queries to agents is getting higher, so that just makes everything like so much more difficult. The reason I've been thinking about this because I am stuck in a little bit of limbo of like whether I want to self-publish or not. Like I know self-publishing takes a lot of work in terms of trying to promote, but at the same time I'm almost just like sick of this feeling of like sitting around and waiting to be chosen. You're obviously not sitting around, you're writing, but you're putting queries out there and nothing's really happening. And I think like logically with the books that I've written, I can understand why nothing's really happening, because they are maybe not books that would have like a large audience, but for me, like they would still have an audience. So I mean, this is kind of the absurdity of it, is that, you know, I've written a book kind of about maladaptive daydreaming and like a group therapy around that, and I can understand like that's not going to be like a big seller, but I do think there's an audience for it, and like an audience that's probably craving books like this, because I craved a book like this. And I had a meeting with an agent, and the agent just couldn't understand it, and she was kind of like, oh, you don't want things to sound so silly. Or, you know, she said something like that, which made me think, like, just the absurdity of having to convince, like, a person who wouldn't understand the book to take a chance on it, because there may be people out there who understand the book. I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing, and I was just thinking about the frustration of how, you know, as writers, we're not really encouraged to invest in ourselves. It's kind of supposed to be like this free activity until you know, you're good enough to like be discovered. But, you know, people will put money to start their own business. People will put money to make a short movie. People will put money towards, you know, buying studio time and, you know, making their own albums, however that's done. I don't know that much about the music scene, but I suspect like people, it's not frowned upon for people to be investing in themselves. Like it's more normal. And like I say, obviously self-publishing is growing more so than it was, but, you know, it's still kind of like, I think to the average person, although, you know, in writing circles it might be quite common now, I think, you know, for the average person, they would expect that you are picked up by a publisher, by an agent, and that's giving you the stamp of approval. And I don't know if, again, it's just like reading a book you do want, and, you know, part of me understands this because I'm the same. It's kind of like you do want somebody to say like, this is going to be worth your time investment. So in that respect, I can understand why people want somebody to have like read this before you in order to say, okay, that was good. But I suppose from a self-publishing point of view, all you need is like some readers to take a chance on you, and then once you have reviews, then other people would take a chance. Like an agent validating you right now isn't really that much different from just like readers validating you, because agents actually are very swayed by the trends that are going on and the marketability of something. Like it's really often you read published books where you're like, why was this published, or this could have used more editing. I mean, like more and more you read books and it's just like you don't really understand like why that was chosen. So yeah, I suppose it's just this sense of not being able to build your own momentum, like not being able to take these incremental steps that other people in the arts can do. Like if you're an artist, you can be like putting your art online. Yeah, I think it's just a strange thing to, you know, invest so much time and energy into an art and then feel like, oh, I'm like sitting on something that I can't do anything with, or that, you know, now, you know, I've got these things, but I need to sit and wait for somebody to give me the green light. And I think it does happen now where people can self-publish and then eventually, you know, if they get traction, then a publisher can pick them up. So I think things can be done like that. And if that were seen as a more kind of normal path, I think it would be more in line with like the way other arts are. Like you invest in yourself and put yourself out there, and you invest money and you put yourself out there, and then eventually somebody higher up takes notice. I think that's more kind of in line with what you expect from the other arts, where, you know, it is seen as more normal to invest in yourself and, you know, build your own momentum, and then somebody takes a chance on you, or like it's not actually even a chance because you've kind of proven yourself in a way. So yeah, I was just thinking about this and thinking about like kind of the double standard and just about the frustration. I was actually watching another writer who's been querying for a long time, and she was feeling so upset about it and dejected because it seemed like everyone around her was getting agents and she wasn't. And I just think it's it's sad as writers that has become, not become, like that's the way it is, that is what we need to do in order to feel validated. Like this girl had sent out over like 200 queries, which I think is just going to be the reality of the situation right now. I mean, these agents only take on a small amount of writers, and there's obviously just a growing number of writers because it's so easy now just to like fire off emails to these agents. I think like in the past, even when I started querying when I was young, like you needed to like print out your manuscript and you needed to like actually send it off in the post. Like I think just even that kind of barrier I think would have stopped a lot of people in a sense, because I think you'd need to be like quite serious about something in order to like spend the time that it takes to like do the printing and the sending to the post office and all that kind of stuff. Not sending to the post office, going to the post office, because like that used to be like quite a struggle. And I just think even small struggles will cull away like some of the people that the writing is not that important to, but because it's just become so accessible, I think like the volume's just probably out of control, like from the agent's point of view. But yeah, it is just weird, like you need to wait for an agent to say like, oh, they get it, they understand it, when like maybe these agents aren't the audience that you've got in mind, and that there's not an agent who is the audience that you've got in mind. So yeah, I was just I was watching this video of this girl, and it's kind of funny because I think when you're in writers circles, or the content you consume is a lot about writers, then you're getting a kind of strange perception that everybody who wants to be a writer will get an agent and become published, which I think if you spoke to random people on the street about people getting published, like that would seem more like a dream that was going to happen, like like winning the X Factor or something, or winning the lottery. Like I think it's not, it becomes normalized in writing circles or online because people are sharing their success stories, but like those success stories are obviously just a tiny percentage of people who want to write. So yeah, I was just thinking about this and the differences in the arts and the perceptions, and I'm still making a decision about what I want to do. Eventually I would love to be published and be in a bookshop from being officially published, but I do wonder if I've got certain projects where I think, well, this would quite suit me just putting that out there and trying to promote it myself, because maybe the topic matter is just not going to interest agents. So yeah, I do think that it's important to consider different paths, and also just to question why is something perceived a different way from all the other arts. I do think it probably is the time investment of the consumer. I think that's probably the main reason which makes it different from other arts. But if you've got any ideas of what it is that makes writing different from other creative pursuits in terms of like the amount of self-investment people would expect from it, please do leave a comment and let me know. I think it is to do with the time it takes to read a book, but I'm not sure if that's the only reason or the most prominent reason, or if people just want that stamp of approval because that's the way it's always been, or if maybe audiences are changing, because I was thinking you know, on Amazon, or if you're on Kindle, you're probably not even aware of what is self-published and what's not self-published in a sense. Please do leave a comment if you have any thoughts on this, if you are a writer who's getting frustrated about the amount of time you've got to wait, and, you know, just this feeling of, I think it's like a feeling of helplessness, actually. You know, you're kind of doing everything you can do, but nothing is happening, and there's no milestones that you're achieving. There's no like incremental feelings of success. I think that's the most frustrating thing about, you know, writing books. Yeah, so those are my thoughts, and please do leave a comment if you have any other thoughts to add to this. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you can, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.